101.7 WVXU. Support for NPR comes from the station and from Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments' team of specialists offer guidance on investing, retirement, and Social Security. FisherInvestments.com. Investments in securities involve the risk of loss. From Procter & Gamble, maker of Align Probiotic, a daily supplement designed by gastroenterologists to help relieve occasional bloating, gas, and abdominal discomfort. More at AlignProbiotics.com. From BetterHelp, committed to supporting mental health through therapy. Clients are matched with one of 25,000 therapists and can communicate via video, chat, or phone at betterhelp.com/public. And from the listeners who support this NPR station.
This is Morning Edition from NPR News. I'm Leila Fadel.
And I'm Ian Martinez. 1 year ago, President Biden signed the most significant piece of climate policy in U.S. history. It's called the Inflation Reduction Act. The law aims to shift the U.S. economy away from fossil fuels and slash greenhouse gas emissions. NPR's Camila Damanowski covers cars and energy, and Rachel Waldholtz is an editor on our climate team. They're here to tell us how it's all been going. So let's start with you, Rachel. Let's start with the basics. What does this law do?
Well, it's a really big law, so it's doing a lot. But essentially, I think of it as this giant basket of incentives that's aimed at getting all of these different parts of the economy to cut their greenhouse gas emissions by making that cheaper than using fossil fuels. So basically, the federal government is spending hundreds of billions of dollars to subsidize renewable energy and other technologies. I spoke with Jesse Jenkins. He's a professor at Princeton who worked on the law, and this is how he put it.
In essence, it puts clean energy on sale for households and businesses and industries all over the country, lowering the cost of adoption of everything from electric vehicles to solar panels to manufacturing facilities.
And I'll just jump in here, this is Camila, to note that this law passed last year with only Democratic votes. Republicans now control the House, and many of them want to repeal these climate measures, both because of the price tag associated, which has been growing, and because they simply don't believe the U.S. should be rapidly shifting away from fossil fuels.
All right, so a really ambitious law. Camila, what are we seeing in year one?
Yeah, so two really big things are happening, and I cover business. This is based on both looking at data and talking to individual businesses, right? The first is the shift to clean energy is happening faster than it was expected to. And the second is that more of the manufacturing involved in that big change is happening in the United States. That was another big goal of this law. It takes time, obviously, to go from starting a factory to having a finished product, but a lot of projects are getting launched.
Yeah, and while the law provides a lot of economic incentives, though, there are a lot of non-economic hurdles for these projects. So this law is pumping a ton of money into things like renewable energy and electric vehicles, but those projects face issues, clean energy projects, they need land, they need permits, they need to connect to the grid. Those are all huge challenges. So everything is moving faster, but there are definitely still hurdles. But overall, what we'd say is that we are definitely seeing investment starting to happen, especially around electric vehicles and around manufacturing for batteries and the components for solar panels.
All right, so that's the big picture, but what about for me, the little person? Camila, if I'm considering maybe an EV or solar panels, what's in it for me?
Yeah, so for electric vehicles, there are federal subsidies, a consumer tax credit of up to $7,500. That is a famously confusing tax credit to figure out if you qualify for. It should get a little easier next year when you're able to get it at the dealership right up front. There are also tax credits available right now for things like electric heat pumps or solar panels if you're upgrading your house to be greener. There's also another program on the way. This is money for households that are under a certain income level. There are rebates on those same kinds of green upgrades to your home. But that federal money is actually going through the states, so it's taking some time to get it up and running, but it's on the way.
All right, now Rachel, we said this is a major climate policy, so how does it score on that front?
Yeah, as a climate policy, it's a really big deal. Studies agree that it should help the U.S. significantly reduce its contribution to climate change by cutting emissions from fossil fuels. But by itself, it's still not enough to meet the Biden administration's goal of cutting emissions in half by 2030. And that's important because that's the target that scientists say is necessary to keep warming low enough to limit warming and avoid the worst impacts of climate change. So I think stepping back, it's pretty extraordinary that we're having this conversation because just a couple years ago, it didn't seem possible to go as fast as this law now suggests the U.S. is going to go. And yet the scale of the problem is so big that the U.S. needs to go even faster. So overall, the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, has really changed the conversation on climate change. For a long time, the question was, is the U.S. government going to act? And the answer now is yes. The federal government has put a ton of money on the table. And the question now is whether the rest of society, other economic players, will pick up those incentives and run with them.
That's NPR's Rachel Waltz and Camila Kaminowski. Thanks to you both.
Thank you.
Human-caused climate change has led to record-breaking temperatures across the country and much of the world this summer. Dina Pritchett lives in Portland, Oregon, where summers are usually temperate, but on Monday, the city hit 108 degrees.
108 degrees wasn't just a daily record. It's actually the hottest temperature Portland's ever recorded in the entire month of August. As even my 6-year-old daughter Odessa can tell you, the heat makes it hard to go about daily life.
I was supposed to go to camp today, but it was so hot that it got canceled.
Portland isn't just having record highs, it's also matching records for minimum temperatures, meaning you don't even get a break at night.
I was definitely sweating. Like my shirt, it was stuck to my skin.
Schedules for everything from trash collection to football practice have shifted to start hours earlier and finish before temperatures peak. The city is also working to avoid the losses of 2021's heat dome. They've set up cooling centers for the hottest part of the day, circulated maps of air-conditioned public spaces, and city buses will take folks there for free.
They've been a lot more better prepared this time.
George Wood is at a temporary misting station in southeast Portland. The Water Bureau set up over a dozen of these in parks across the city. Anyone can walk up and wet their head or fill their water bottles.
They didn't really have any of this stuff set up last time, but I mean, even just a simple station like this really helps out a lot.
Wood lives in a tent, which can't really protect against temperatures like these.
There's been a lot of outreach. People have come by, making sure that we stay hydrated and trying to keep up with the cooling.
Wood is also looking out for his dog, Winston. The misting stations have little taps by the ground where pets can get a drink. The city is urging Portlanders to stay cool as best they can and check in on their neighbors. The National Weather Service expects temperatures to drop back to normal by the end of the week and hopes these are the last of the triple-digit days, at least for this year. For NPR News, I'm Dina Pritchett in Portland, Oregon.
This is NPR News.
A new Texas law going into effect soon will ban rules guaranteeing water breaks for outdoor workers.
A lot of folks have asked me, how can it be that there aren't actual laws guaranteeing people the right to come off of a scaffold and get a drink of water?
I'm Elsa Chang, why Texans are pushing for federal standards that protect workers from the heat. On All Things Considered from NPR News.
You can hear All Things Considered this afternoon at 4 o'clock until 6:30 with Bill Reinhardt on 91.7 WVXU. The Norwood Lateral eastbound between Montgomery Road and 71 is closed because of a wreck. Watch out for that this morning.
Support comes from Cincinnati Compass announcing their 3rd annual event, Cincinnati Rhythm, celebrating new Americans who contribute to a strong regional economy and diverse, vibrant community, featuring local food with international flavor, awards, and entertainment. September 8th at Waypoint Aviation. Ticket information, full details, including sponsorship opportunities at CincinnatiCompass.org, connecting immigrants and community for a stronger region.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Dave Mattingly. The death toll from wildfires in Hawaii now stands at 106. Officials expect that number to continue going up as search teams examine more burned houses, businesses, and vehicles on Maui. The historic town of Lahaina was mostly destroyed. Urban search teams deployed by the Federal Emergency Management Agency are helping to locate additional human remains. Eric Darling is working with authorities along with his black lab, Maisie.
every single dog is doing an outstanding job. It's not just Maisie and I. This is a group effort, and the men and women that are doing it are by far the best that we have.
Some residents of Maui are being allowed back in to assess their losses. Strong storms that moved across much of the East Coast yesterday are blamed for at least one death in North Carolina. Elizabeth Kennedy says a large tree fell on her house in the Durham area.
When I went up to the living room, it just, I just lost it. Because to look and see that a tree is laying in your house and it destroyed your whole house on the inside.
Later today at the White House, President Biden plans to mark 1 year since he signed the Inflation Reduction Act into law. This is NPR News from Washington.
Good morning. It's 8:32, 64 degrees in Cincinnati. This is 91.7 WVXU. I'm Marianne Zalesnik. A crowd of about 100 attended a town hall last night at Miami University, Middletown, hosted by U.S. Representative Warren Davidson. The Republican fielded questions and said the economy is top of mind for those in the staunchly conservative 8th Congressional District in Southwest Ohio.
Housing right now, the median home price is 5.8 times the median income. That is out of reach for a lot of people.
Davidson also hit GOP talking points ahead of next year's election, condemning indictments against former President Donald Trump and calling for the impeachment of President Joe Biden. Davidson has held the district, including Hamilton and Middletown, since 2016, when he won a special election to replace retiring House Speaker John Boehner. The number of adult walleye in Lake Erie this summer is among the highest of the last 30 years. Just a decade ago, the fish's population was floundering. The Ohio Newsroom's Erin Gottsacker reports.
Right now, there are an estimated 70 million adult walleye in Lake Erie. That's up from about 30 million in 2013. Travis Hartman studies these fish. He's the Lake Erie Fisheries Program Administrator for the Ohio Division of Wildlife. For a long time, he said scientists thought walleye success had to do with ice cover on the lake and the timing of spring.
But these past 4 or 5 years have broken that mold. What we're seeing is potentially high water that gives us a good chance of a big hatch.
As the climate changes, Lake Erie's water levels are fluctuating faster and faster, and scientists aren't sure what that'll mean for the fish in the future. For the Ohio Newsroom, I'm Erin Gottsacker.
The Guardians beat the Reds 3-0. Cincinnati's lost 10 of 13 and was shut out for the 9th time. The two teams play again tonight. Andrew Abbott will be on the mound for the Reds. Novak Djokovic fell in his first match in the U.S. since 2021, losing in doubles yesterday in the Western and Southern Open. Djokovic and Nikola Cicic lost 6-4, 6-2 to Jamie Murray and Michael Venus, and the Serbian stars returned to the country after missing events because of COVID-19 vaccine restrictions. Djokovic is set to open singles play tonight. Mostly sunny to partly cloudy today. The high temperature 79. A few clouds tonight down to 61. It's 65. And as we said at the beginning, the Norwood Lateral eastbound between Montgomery and 71 is closed because of a wreck this morning.
Support for NPR comes from this station and from Ooma, a cloud-based phone service for any size business with an automated virtual receptionist, video meetings, and other features to connect to customers and coworkers anywhere at ooma.com/NPR. And from Indeed, a hiring platform designed to streamline the hiring process. Indeed works to help businesses attract, interview, and hire candidates in one place. More at Indeed.com/NPR. This is NPR.
This is Morning Edition from NPR News. I'm Martinez in Culver City, California.
And I'm Layla Falden in Washington. In the country's bitter debate over immigration and border policy, immigration detention has become a flashpoint. Now, an NPR investigation stretching over more than 3 years has revealed a massive trove of government records. They show that the government's own experts found barbaric treatment, negligent medical and mental health care, racist abuse, and what one expert called astonishing failures inside these detention facilities. Administrations under both Donald Trump and Joe Biden fought the release of these records. NPR investigative correspondent Tom Dreisbach has been reporting this story. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning.
Okay, so before we get to the actual findings, can you give a sense of who was writing these reports and what they were looking for?
Yeah, so these reports are written by experts in subjects like medical care, mental health, use of force, and environmental safety. Now, these experts are hired by the Department of Homeland Security to investigate complaints and claims of civil rights abuses in immigration detention centers. So these are facilities that lock up immigrants on behalf of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE. The goal is to make sure people show up for their appearances in immigration court. Now, that can include people who cross the border seeking asylum, or people who entered the country illegally who are fighting deportation. Now, these inspectors are known to find problems that others overlook and to write in a much more unvarnished way than you hear in a typical government report. The government has been fighting our efforts to get these reports since 2019, so we later filed a lawsuit, and it took years, but a judge found that the government had violated the Freedom of Information Act and ordered them to send us these files.
And a reminder that it was both the Trump and Biden administration that fought the release of these files.
That's
what
right.
do they say?
We got more than 1,600 pages of reports covering more than 24 facilities all across the country from 2017 to 2019, because that's when our lawsuit started. These inspectors found serious problems: pepper spraying of mentally ill detainees, retaliation for filing complaints, ignoring medical problems, filthy conditions, including a cockroach found on a medical exam table and medical instruments covered in grime. Some of the examples that stick out: in Michigan, a man who had just had surgery and had active surgical drains was placed in general population with no bandages and no wound care and no medical appointments. And when the inspector asked about it, the facility's medical director said he had no idea. In Pennsylvania, a mentally ill man was locked